Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 8th edition of the SEC Live Show at the Voice of College Football. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It's good to be back after a crazy election week and season. Now we're back full-time again. Tyler, how you doing?
Pretty well, man. Tough weekend for the Dogs, though. We could talk about that. For one, I don't know if people pay attention to my predictions. I actually had Georgia losing that game. I thought Ole Miss was going to beat Georgia. I just didn't see a 28-10 type of deal in which Ole Miss completely dominated and just destroyed Georgia at all aspects of the game. But other than that, I've been pretty well. I know for you, the Texas Longhorns had a big win against Florida. I mean, that was just a spanking. I know Florida was a little banged up, but still, it just took care of business. Texas looks like one of the better teams in the SEC, so might be the best. And they are the team to beat right now.
Yeah, it was. I expected to be a little bit closer. I think my prediction with Aiden Warner playing was 41-10, so I didn't think we'd kill him, but I was even surprised DJ Lagway was in uniform. Like, he gets carted off the field holding his hamstring on crutches, and then he's playing. And I think with the line this week, and we'll get to that game later versus LSU, I think that tells you there's a good chance he does play. So we'll talk about that in a second. But again, guys, please hit that like button and subscribe. Also, follow me there on X or Twitter, whatever you prefer. And Tyler is right there on X or Twitter as well. Again, whatever you prefer. And use that Amazon link in the description. It is Christmas season. I know a lot of people are going to be spending their time on Amazon to shop. So use that link. Does not change the buying process whatsoever. You can also grab Mark's new book about undisputed national championships and how it changed all in the 1990s. So use the link to buy his book. Really helps out the channel and what we're trying to grow here in general. And then also, you don't want to watch us, but you'd like to listen to us, and it kills your phone battery less. I understand that if you're in the car or at work. Go over to your favorite audio platform, type in the Voice of College Football, and look up the SEC. You can hear our voices there. Now, after that loss, things became very murky in the SEC picture. So we're going to talk a little bit of SEC championship scenarios. It could be quite a cluster, you-know-what, coming down the stretch. Tyler, how about you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, it could be as easy as, the two top teams making it. Or we will, if Texas A&M wins out too. So obviously A&M has just one loss. There's three teams with one loss. Two of those three could obviously win out, and boom, that's the easy thing. But of course, knowing the SEC and especially the SEC cannibalism we've seen thus far this season, with Ole Miss even losing to Kentucky, Alabama losing to Vandy, we're going to see some incredibly weird situations. So, like me and you kind of talked about this beforehand. Tennessee and Texas are probably, well, as of right now, those are the two, I would say, favorites, even though Tennessee statistically or odds, I think they're tied for third behind Bama. Bama's getting a lot of love right now because of the FPI and all these other analytics that think Tennessee's going to lose this weekend at Georgia. But with Tennessee, all they have to do is win out. Same with Texas. And that just, that's set. Boom. We don't have to worry about these dumb scenarios, but it's what I think is going to happen. And I do think Georgia's going to beat Tennessee. And then here we go. Who's going to be that second team? Could Texas lose to A&M? Yeah. But, even with A&M or Texas losing, who's going to be that second team? So there's 5 or 6 teams, maybe even 7, with the possibility of being 6-2 if you throw in Missouri, that they don't have any tiebreaker. I don't think they had the easiest schedule amongst all of the upper half of the SEC. I'm trying to even think. I guess their best win is Vandy.
Yeah, it is.
It would be Vandy, and with Vanderbilt, so Missouri's pretty much out of it. It's between 6-2 Ole Miss, 6-2 Georgia, 6-2 presumably Texas A&M, 6-2 presumably LSU, and 6-2 Bama. Oh, as well as 6-2 Tennessee, and then like I just said, the 7th team. That's so far fetched, and a lot of people are making a big deal, and it's gonna work itself out. But like, I don't know about you. I really feel like we're going to see some chaos in the SEC. I don't know if I don't think there's going to be 7 teams with the possibility, or 7 teams tied for that second spot. I do think Missouri's probably going to lose another game probably this weekend. I do think there's a possibility Tennessee could actually lose 2 more games at Vandy. Listen, you could say what you want about Vandy. That's a rivalry game, and that game is circled on their schedule now with them losing to South Carolina. And then whoever else. So those 2 would probably take care of themselves. LSU is the sneaker team, though, because I don't know if people have been watching Twitter, but with all these weird scenarios, if all the favorites won, LSU would win all of the tiebreakers somehow, some way, based on the 4 dumb things that the SEC has set aside for the tiebreakers. So that would be an interesting thing to think about with how bad LSU played. And in fact, they've lost their past 2 games. They got blown out against Texas A&M, scoreboard-wise, and then obviously blown out at home against Bama. And then they would get rewarded in the SEC title if they went out. So that wouldn't really sit well with me. I don't know about you on that stance, but yeah, it looks to me, if I had to bet, I would say Alabama and Texas will probably play. That's what I would say as of right now.
And honestly speaking, like just what my eyes tell me, I think those are the 2 best teams right now. But I mean, I could be wrong. This season's been crazy. And yeah, I agree. Like LSU getting in would be disgusting to me. I think LSU is legitimately like the 6th or 7th best team in the SEC. They're not that good. They got beat pretty easily when Texas A&M put the right quarterback in. They look god awful. They can't stop the quarterback run like at all. They've had 3 out of 4 tries have gone terribly wrong. The only one that worked out was Taylon Green. But Jalen Milroe, Lenora Sellers, they would have lost. They'd be eliminated right now if Lenora Sellers was healthy in that game. Yeah. By the way, I think that seems scary as hell. Like if South Carolina only had 2 losses, I would not want to play them. That front 4 is, I've said it like a month ago. I think it's the best front 4 in the country. So they're really good. I agree. I think they'll beat Missouri this week. And yeah, the scenario you were talking about, I don't know if this is true because the SEC has not made this clear. Guys, you got to remember, the SEC came out with these tiebreakers like a week before the season started. They were like, the whole offseason decide, here's the tiebreakers a week before the season starts. I was like, okay, thanks for that. I had already made my preseason predictions before they came out with the tiebreakers. So it's been crazy. And like you said, there could be an actual 8-way tie if Missouri wins out. And then this happens. So if Arkansas were to be either Texas or Missouri, that would give them 2 losses. Then, what was the other scenario? I believe no, because that's all that has to happen. And then Tennessee would have to lose to Georgia. So if Georgia beat Tennessee, which could definitely happen, that would give you 8 teams tied. In that scenario, if you go through all the tiebreakers and there is no like, well, this person wins this tiebreaker, so they move on. They just all get lumped up. So you go down the tiebreaker list. LSU would be in the SEC championship game with the winner of the Texas versus Texas A&M game. That is ridiculous. Like you could legitimately have Texas A&M and LSU. And I think that's probably like the 6th and 5th best teams in the SEC playing each other in the SEC championship game. It sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and see, that's where I'm like that would never sit well with me. And I've been high on LSU all off season, but the thing is, LSU has just looked pretty bad over the past few weeks, and they just had a bye week and got demoralized at home. I really do believe though that it's not going to be this crazy, and I do. There's something about Alabama now that is just sitting really well with me. With how they've been playing. They're playing their best ball now. They had that weird 3-week stretch in which weird things were happening. They lost to Vandy, obviously. Then they barely beat South Carolina. Then they lost again to Tennessee in a weird game. But yeah, just rewarding LSU. And the weird thing is, if those 8 teams were in that said tiebreaker, LSU's record would be 1-2 against them, while Bama would be 2-1, or 3-1. No, yeah, 3-1 if you do count Missouri. Ole Miss would be 2-1, and Tennessee would be 1-1. LSU being 1-2 against those head-to-head teams in the top 8. Why would they get to go? See, that's why I don't really think that's final, but again, that's just what we're going off of. That's the scale. The SEC hasn't announced anything, so I'm guessing that they're just going to go with what they did in the preseason, which is fine. But again, it's going to work itself out, so we won't really have to cry and complain. For right now, we're just speculating, and it's a legitimate scenario.
Yeah, I really hope it does work itself out because,
Yeah.
it wouldn't sit right with me either. I don't think LSU would be worthy to get in. And yeah, they'd probably be like, even on a worthiness scale, do I think they're the best team or second best team in the SEC? No, but I definitely don't think they'd be one of the two most worthy either. Just looking at that, what you just pointed out, they'd be worthy more than Texas because I think Texas in that scenario would be 0-2 because they would have played Georgia and A&M and lost to both of them. So yeah, they should definitely be eliminated. But yeah, like Alabama, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, or in Georgia, honestly, too, would all be more worthy, in my opinion, than LSU would have. So yeah, it doesn't make much sense.
And you see, that's why I think head-to-head should be number one in those said teams. But again, it's a mixture of, I think it was 4 different things in the criteria. One of those is the head-to-head amongst those teams. The other is best record against common opponents.
Yeah. But they all don't play each other. That's the thing. That's why it would be LSU because they all don't play each other. And record versus common opponents, you can only do that one-on-one. That's like a one-on-one tiebreaker. You can't do that for 8 teams.
Yeah, so it's going to work itself out. I feel like every time this does happen, it works itself out, or at least there isn't a big scenario. But I do believe there is going to be a 4-way tie between the 2 through 5 seed. So however they're going to figure that out is beyond me. And we'll see. LSU could lose this weekend. Georgia could lose this week. Well, if Georgia loses this weekend, it pretty much fixes everything. I wouldn't say it's done and set because Tennessee could lose to Vandy end of the year. And Texas could lose to Arkansas, or pretty unlikely, but it's possible. With the SEC cannibalism, and Arkansas just had a bye week. So, but yeah, the SEC by far the most competitive conference and the most entertaining conference. Most of these games have been relatively close. Obviously, the Alabama game's an anomaly, but you could say the Georgia one as well. But we're seeing teams like Arkansas step up and beat a top-tier team. Vandy did it to Bama. Kentucky did it to Ole Miss. So, the SEC has just been so fun this year.
Yeah, it has been. And that's funny you said that, like, breaking up, because the preseason I had Texas going 11-1, making the SEC championship game, and then I had a 5-way tie for second. So that exact scenario could play out. I would need Tennessee to lose this weekend and then Texas to win out. I think I had the scenario I had in the regular or preseason, so that would make me look really good. I've been right about the SEC a lot. I have not been right about any other conference. I've been dead wrong about the ACC, been dead wrong about the Big Ten. But I'd be happy for a season like actually paying attention heavily to the SEC to get that right. But we'll see what happens. I agree with you though. Like most of the time we talk about this stuff, but it never happens. Really, last year was kind of the only year that happened where what if all of these teams go undefeated or have one loss and you saw Florida State go undefeated and get left out, but that's because their quarterback got hurt. I don't think if Jordan Travis gets hurt, they probably end, and that wouldn't even have been a real discussion. I know Alabama fans probably would have been pissed at the end of the day, but it is what it is. It wouldn't have been as tight. And I do think going forward, we have to fix scheduling because it's just so uneven right now. And the conferences aren't the same. Like I think most people watching us probably have watched the College Football Nerds. They were talking about on a video today. Like if you looked at the FPI, the 8th best team or 7th best team in the SEC is LSU. The 8th best team in the Big Ten is Wisconsin. That's not even. We saw Alabama beat the absolute, out of Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin or LSU would do that, but they beat them by 2 touchdowns. So these conferences aren't equal. The schedules aren't equal, and we have to really evaluate these schedules in the conferences because, again, they're not equal. And until someone steps in and decides to make them equal, this committee is going to be put in a tough position, honestly.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's just been an interesting and weird college football season. The SEC, like I just said, very fun to watch. I don't know if, we talked about this team in particular before we started the live, but Indiana, they're 10-0. I mean, they just actually had their first close win of the season or even close game That's the first time they've been challenged, but they're a pretty dang good team. It's just, well, who have they played, right? That's a common saying in the college football realm, and Twitter and whatever, social media. But who have they played, right? Genuinely, who has Indiana played? I don't know. Michigan, maybe. I guess that's the best team. Washington, can't be Nebraska. But yeah, these schedules are very uneven. And with the SEC, though, this gauntlet, these next few weeks are going to be very, very fun. Expect the unexpected. That's what I think. Expect the unexpected.
Indiana's best win up to this point, like record-wise, is Nebraska because it's the only team over 500. Yeah. That's the only team they've beaten with a record over 500, so that's pretty bad. And that's why you have to use some discretion. Like if they go 11-1, I'm sorry, you're probably not getting in. Like there's a 10-2 SEC team there. They're going to have a better record or schedule than you. They should get in over that 11-1 Indiana team. And it sucks to say that, but it's just the case. Like you can't. Honestly, if South Carolina went 9-3, I'd put them in over 11-1 Indiana with the schedule they have, because if they played each other's schedules, I think South Carolina would probably go 11-1. Hell, with that defensive line and it's a one-game season going up to Columbus, they could win that football game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and the last thing I'll say about the scenarios and towards really the Big Ten, they kind of have some weird thing coming up there with Oregon. Oregon should win out. They have a tough game at Washington. Like I said, expect the unexpected, or not Washington. They play Washington at home. They play Wisconsin actually this weekend. Like I said, expect the unexpected. I actually think that's going to be a close game. That might surprise some people. But then you got Indiana and Ohio State and Penn State, who pretty much are playoff locks. It is what it is. I know with Indiana's schedule, it's not really fair, but it's hard to not put in an 11-1 Indiana. And again, with that schedule, it's unfair towards these SEC teams. But yeah, it's just they have a weird thing in which they I'm gonna be for real. They kind of protected the big three this season. I said this earlier, in which Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State pretty much all got favorable schedules. And then if you see what the SEC kind of did, SEC didn't really display and push out some of these games like they could have done. And obviously now with Texas, if Texas goes 10-2, that could be a question mark. If they lose Texas A&M, I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think Texas will be hosting a game if they were to make the playoffs. So it's like that. And whereas for Georgia, if they go 10-2, they're pretty much in. A lot would have to go against them, I think. If Georgia doesn't get in, like that weird 6-game or 8-team tiebreaker could screw Georgia, I guess. Yeah. But and then that's where the unbalance of schedules come to play, and it's going to hurt some teams. But again, this is our first time with the 12-team playoff. And to be honest with you, if you can't make a 12-team playoff, I don't know if you really should be talking. It's a lot different than 4 for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, Texas, honestly, I've thought about this. I would rather lose to Kentucky or Arkansas and beat A&M.
Yeah, that's a must-win.
Yeah, you have to beat A&M. If you beat A&M, you're in. Even if you lose the game, I think that, like I said, I think that helps you more than losing to A&M, because then you have no good wins, people would say. And I'd agree with that. I don't think the best win at that point would probably be Arkansas or Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt's a nice team. They're going to probably go 6-6 or 7-5. But they're not anything special. Do I think they're better than anyone Indiana has played up until Ohio State? Yeah, I do. I think Vanderbilt would be the best one Indiana has, but that doesn't mean anything at that point. But, yeah, we're going to move on to some games now. Speaking of Missouri and South Carolina, Vegas agrees with us. South Carolina is favored by 12.5 points to a team in about 10 minutes to an hour, depending on the college basketball, is going to be ranked. Will they be ranked? Yeah, they'll probably be ranked. They're barely.
Should be.
Yeah, they'll be ranked. And they're dogs versus South Carolina. And I think they should be. It does not surprise me. And it's going to be interesting with that line. Is Brady Cook going to play in this game, or is it going to be Drew Pine? That's going to be very interesting to me, whether he plays or not. Let's talk about this Missouri offense. 25.1 points per game, 74th in the country. 5.1 yards per play, 94th in the country. Third down percentage converted, 46.4, 15th in the country, so they are good at that. 4.3 yards per rush, 70th in the country. 6.4 yards per pass. That is 114th in the country, and a sack percentage given up of 7.19%. That is 95th in the country. So pretty bad, honestly, down the board on offense. Defensive-wise, 20.8 points per game, 22nd in the country. 5.3 yards per play given up, 52nd in the country. Third down percentage given up 28.43. That is 5th in the country. So great on the defensive side of the ball on third down and great on the offensive side of the ball on third down. 4.2 yards per rush, 66th in the country. 7.2 yards per pass, 57th in the country. And getting after the quarterback and sacking them 8.29% of the time. That is 21st in the country. Now, South Carolina, 30.2 points per game, 42nd in the country. 5.2 yards per play, 81st in the country. 4.1 yards per rush, 79th in the country. 8 yards per pass, 26th in the country. And they've gotten slightly better. They've improved along the offensive line. 12.5% sack rate, 131st. They moved from the worst to the third worst in the country along the offensive line. Defensively, 17.6 points per game, 10th in the country. 4.3 yards per play, 7th in the country. 3 yards per rush, 9th in the country. 6.3 yards per pass, 30th in the country, and 5th in sack rate at 10.68%. Like I said, I think they are the best front four in the country. I think they are one of the 5 best front sevens in the country. How do you think this game plays out, Tyler?
Well, yeah, this is one of the 3. If you're an LSU fan, this is one of the 3 games you have to watch. The first one being Texas and Arkansas, second one obviously being your game, and then the third one being this Missouri and South Carolina game. I personally believe South Carolina should be ranked. Again, we'll find out here. Well, by the time you guys see this video, the rankings will be out. So this could be a top 25 matchup. Missouri, they are a completely different offensive team with Brady Cook at QB. Again, he has some hand injury. And I ask this question all the time. I just don't get it. How can he come back against Auburn, right? And then not against Bama? Okay, that's a big game for Missouri, point blank. I don't understand that. He could come back against Auburn, couldn't do it against Bama. Maybe he re-injured it, had a bye week, and then he couldn't against Oklahoma. Again, I don't know if Brady Cook's going to be playing in this game, and that's why I do think this line is a lot more than kind of what it should be. But nonetheless, this South Carolina team is hot, and they're hot at the right time. I like South Carolina here, just point blank and simple. For me, it's just going to come down to, do I think they can win by 12.5? Well, they beat Vandy by pretty considerably. They probably should have won by more. For being real, they completely dominated Vandy for 4 quarters, found a way to only win 28-7, I guess. Shout out to Vandy for keeping it close towards the end there. But I like South Carolina. Lenore Sellers is playing a lot better. He's actually throwing the football a little bit better as his QBR is getting better and better. And obviously he can run. He's ridiculous on the ground. So, and then throw in Rocket Sanders. I like South Carolina here. The over under 44.5. Listen, if Brady Cook's not playing, I love the under. But if he is playing, I think this is going to be a pretty close game. I'm guessing he's not playing. That's just what I'm going to go with. That's kind of what I'm hearing. So give me South Carolina 27-10. 27-10. I think that's about right. So I would take the under. But I do think South Carolina is going to control this game. I think they're just the better team. And Missouri's outside playoff hopes are pretty much over with here.
Yeah, in the Alabama game, I remember watching that. I'm pretty sure I've never seen this in back-to-back drives or plays. He hit his hand on an offensive lineman's helmet. So I think he may have done like serious damage to his hand, and that's why he couldn't play in the later games, like versus Oklahoma, and then obviously in the second half versus Bama. I don't know though. They don't have to. Like the NFL has to release like specific injuries, whereas college they don't really do that, and they don't really have to do that. But yeah, I agree. I think if Brady Cook's in this game, I think they cover. I don't think they win, but I'm assuming he's not playing in this game. And do I think Brady Cook's like some all-world quarterback? No, but he's way better than Drew Pine. I've seen enough of Drew Pine. He's not good at all. I still don't know how he's a backup at college anywhere. If he's in the game, you're probably not going to win versus any team in the top 30, 35 range. And South Carolina is definitely one of those teams. And Lenore Sellers has played a lot better. And I think a lot of that has to do with Nick Harbor. Nick Harbor, coming in as a freak athlete, 5-star, which is rare for South Carolina. They usually get like one a cycle. And he was that one a couple years ago. And he's, learning how to play wide receiver. And he's become a pretty damn good wide receiver. He had that great catch versus Alabama. He played pretty good versus Texas A&M. I think he's going to play pretty good in this game. And their front four is going to go off. So I think Drew Pond's going to be running for his life here as well. I'm going to take South Carolina in this game 31-14. So I'm going to go slightly over here. I don't love it. But if Brady Cook doesn't play in this game, I'm going to take South Carolina to win this football game. I actually already placed a bet on South Carolina in a parlay with a teaser. So actually, they only need to win this game by 7 points for me, which I'm hoping they do. We'll see what happens with that. But that's my opinion on that. The only difference here, Tyler has the under here. I have the over, but we're both on South Carolina minus 12.5. Next game. A game kind of similar. We're talking about injuries. LSU goes to the Swamp and plays Florida. I'm hoping Florida wins this game because preseason I predicted it to happen, and LSU fans are not happy about that. They cussed me out and said, there's no way in hell we're losing to Florida in the Swamp. It's not happening. Well, I'm hoping it happens. It would be hilarious for multiple reasons. And this line tells me, I don't know if you would agree with this, Tyler, that DJ Lagway is probably going to play in this game because I think if Aiden Warner's for sure the starting quarterback in this game, this line would be bigger than this.
Yeah, he was last week. He was suited up, and he would only come in emergencies. So I think he might give it a go. I can't bank on the fact that he's playing in this game, but I think he might give it a go. We'll see after that scary injury.
Yeah, I mean, getting carted off and then playing 2 weeks later when everyone kind of thought he had like the Dak Prescott injury where you tore your hamstring off the bone. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But LSU offensively, 49th in the country at 28.9 points per game, 6.2 yards per play, 25th in the country, 4.3 yards per rush, 65th in the country, 7.6 yards per pass, 44th in the country, and a 4.7 sack rate, which ranks high in the country. So they're good at protecting the quarterback. They don't get much push from the offensive line in the run game, though. LSU defense, 25.4 points per game, 64th in the country, 5.6 yards per play, 72nd in the country, 4.4 yards per rush, 72nd in the country, 7.7 yards per pass, 86th in the country, and a sack rate of 10.69%, which is 4th in the country. So they get after the quarterback, but everything else is pretty bad. Still like it was last year. Not quite as bad as that, but it's not taking much of a leap. Next up, Florida, 26 points per game, 69th in the country, 5.5 yards per play, 64th in the country, 4.2 yards per rush, 75th in the country, 7.6 yards per pass, 38th in the country, and a sack percentage given up of 5.75%, which is 59th in the country. Defensively, 30.1 points per game. That is 95th in the country. 5.8 yards per play, 87th in the country. 4.4 yards per rush, 78th in the country. And 8.2 yards per pass, which is 103rd in the country. And 6.25% sack percentage, which is 58th in the country. So honestly, a bad defense versus a trash defense from Florida. What do you have to say about this game, Tyler?
Yeah, if Florida can come in and run the football, so if you would have told me before the Texas game that Florida was able to rush for 200 yards, I would have said, man, maybe Florida had a shot to win the game. That's just not the truth. Their defense couldn't stop. They couldn't get a stop. Texas did whatever they wanted against Florida. And I get it. Florida has a lot of injuries defensively as well as obviously offensively with quarterbacks now out, down to a walk-on transfer from Yale. And yeah, it's just Warner, he's just not good. He's not ready. He's just not a Power 5 starting QB. Let's just say it how it is. This line is confusing. I get it. It is a rivalry game, but this is something I don't really know. I don't know who's going to win this game. To be honest with you, my preseason pick would go with LSU, but with how bad Garrett Nussmeier has been playing, and oh, by the way, LSU just can't run the football. Is Durham hurt? I don't know what's going on with him. There's another speculation of maybe he has a foot injury, maybe he doesn't. Why is he only getting 8-9 yards a game? Or sorry, 8-9 carries a game? Doesn't really make any sense. There's a lot going on with LSU I just don't really know about. this is a pick-em game. But Billy Napier, he needs a big win. He needs that signature win to not really gain back the fans, because I think he kind of already did that with the Kentucky game, and then how the Georgia game kind of went. You can't blame him for the Georgia loss. You can for the Texas, how bad that one was. But he kind of needs a signature win here. LSU's probably going to still be ranked. I hate to do this to LSU, but I'm actually going to go Florida here. There's something wrong with LSU. Their offensive line, it was completely overrated. I just don't understand why they can't run the football. And then defensively, they've just been flat. Against Alabama, they gave up so many yards passing and through the ground. I mean, Milroe ran all over them. Where's that defense from the Arkansas game? Where's that incredibly great and elite looking front four? It just hasn't been here since. So I'm actually going to take Florida here, as much as I don't want to LSU, but I'm going to take Florida here in a relatively higher scoring game. So, man, I'm just putting a lot of faith into Florida's quarterback situation. I don't know if DJ's playing, though, but give me the Gators here at home to somehow, some way, find a way to win this one. They're going to have to be able to run the football. I'm going to take 30-27, maybe a game-winning field goal at home against LSU.
So we're going to agree on this. I'm going to take Florida as well, just because preseason, I said this like a month ago, I'm done in-season guessing. My preseason predictions have been way better than my in-season. I said Florida was winning this game preseason. I'm sticking with it. I think Florida wins the game. And honestly, if DJ Lagway was fully healthy, I would really believe in this, because they cannot stop a running quarterback. Well, guess what DJ Lagway is? A running quarterback. The only issue is it's really hard to run if you have a really bad hamstring. So that's my only concern here. If he can even be 80% of himself, I think he could run all over this defense. We've seen it with every other running quarterback other than Taylon Green. And honestly, just thinking back about it, it was probably just a bad game plan from Bobby Petrino. He doesn't have many of those, but I don't think they ran Taylon Green enough. Whereas guess what Alabama's game plan was, and they made this damn clear. We're going to run this football, and we're going to run QB power, we're going to run QB counter, and we're going to use our running backs as blockers for Jalen Milroe. If I'm Florida, I am copying that game plan, and I'm saying, DJ Lagway, give me 10 to 15 carries. If you can give me that, and then we can put in Aiden Warner and other certain situations to keep you more healthy, let's do that. I'm going to take Florida to win this game. I agree with you. I think there's just something off about this team. And I also think, well, I know Garrett Nussmeier is going to turn the football over. That's what he does. He will do something dumb like that in the Alabama game. For whatever reason, doesn't protect the football. He knows he's getting pressured, has it in one hand, and it gets knocked out from behind, recovered by Alabama. They go on to score a touchdown. He's going to turn the football over. He'll read something wrong, throw it to the other team, or a fumble. Florida, you have to capitalize on those. You didn't do that versus Texas. Quinn Ewers did throw a ball that could have been intercepted early on in that game. Did not get intercepted. After that, he was basically perfect. You got to take the mistakes when they're given to you. So if they can do that, I think they win this game. But I'm putting a lot of faith here in my preseason predictions. I don't love it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Florida to win this game 27-23. So I'm going to take the under here, but I'm going to take Florida to win outright.
Yeah, this is the game that's hard to choose. I definitely think it's going to be close. And if Jacoby Jackson and Jaden, I think his name's Bo, something like that. If they can continue to run the football, get those 4, 5, 6 yards of carry, especially with how LSU's front has been over the past 2 games. Yeah, I definitely think Florida can win this game. If DJ plays, they're going to have to go with the 2 QB system there. I don't know if they're going to want to run him even on a bad hamstring, but maybe it's not as bad as, and that's what I'm hearing. The injury's not as bad as what people are saying. So, but Florida's defense is going to have to step up. They can't give up 50 points in this game, or it's going to be out of here. So I think if Florida can establish the run game early on, it's going to open that play action, and I think they can definitely keep this a close one. The line itself is weird, so if you're going to bet on this, it's just hard. That's such a hard line to bet on, in my opinion. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with you here. I'm taking the Gators.
Yeah, it is a weird line. I think they know some inside information.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure DJ Lagaway's got to play. There's no chance you watched Aiden Warner last week and you were like, nah, you know what? It's only going to be a 4.5-point dog because he was not good. And he shouldn't be. He's a third string walk on from Yale. I didn't expect him to do much.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing too, Florida did run the ball well, but it was mostly in the second half. I think they only had like 50 or 60 rushing yards at halftime. So a lot of that came in garbage time. A lot, just like Texas. Texas couldn't run the ball in the first half either. I jumped on Texas in my post game and then this week's show. Like, we didn't run the ball well either, and that's still a concern for me. And speaking of my Longhorns, they go on the road to Fayetteville, play Arkansas, who preseason wise, I said this was the most confident game on the schedule for us to win because I didn't think Arkansas was going to be very good. One, and two, last time we went there, we got flat out embarrassed. Arkansas ran for over 300 yards. Steve Sarkisian, he had this look on the sideline of, oh, this is going to be way harder than I thought it was going to be, because I think he went in that game thinking they could win it. Let's talk about this Texas offense. 38.9 points per game, which is 6th in the country. 6.5 yards per play, which is 16th in the country. 4.7 yards per rush, which is 39th in the country, 8.7 yards per pass, which is 12th in the country, and a sack percentage given up of 5.47%, which is 55th in the country. Defense has been great this year, 12.1 points per game, 4th in the country, 3.8 yards per play, 1st in the country, 3.4 yards per rush, 16th in the country, and 4.6 yards per pass, which is insane. Like, does that have something to do with the offense we played? Absolutely does. But if you look back, usually that's around 5.5 to 5.7. So we're like a yard better than what's normally like ranking number 1, which is crazy to say at this point. We'll see if that changes. Arkansas, 28.4 points per game on offense, 51st in the country, 6.2 yards per play, 28th in the country, 4.7 yards per rush at 40, which is 41st in the country, 8.6 yards per pass, which is 15th in the country. Offensive line is shaky, 8.8 percent of dropbacks and in a sack. That is 111th in the country. Defensively, 29.6 points per game, 86th in the country, 6.0 yards per play, 93rd in the country, 3.9 yards per rush, 38th in the country, 8.6 yards per pass given up, which is 118th in the country, and a sack percentage of 5.36%, which is 81st in the country, which isn't very good. Tyler, what do you have to say about this game?
Yeah, this is a noon kickoff, right?
Yeah.
So I guess 11 a.m. local time for Arkansas. That's kind of disappointing. If you're an Arkansas fan, you'd probably want to have that 3:30 or nighttime slot. Obviously, Georgia, Tennessee are playing, so you weren't going to get that one. But the 3:30 would have maybe fit you better there. But with Arkansas, my preseason predictions for Arkansas, I'm 9 for 9, believe it or not. I've gotten every single one right, every single game right, which is honestly a shock to me. I had them losing to Oklahoma State, then beating Auburn, then losing Texas A&M. I had them beating Tennessee. It's crazy how that all worked out. But I also had them beating Texas in the offseason. And the reason why I had them beating Texas is kind of because of it's where that's being played after the Florida game for Texas, and then before coming up the Texas A&M game. Obviously, you play Kentucky sandwich between that, but I also thought Kentucky was going to be better than what they were. But I got to go Texas here. And now it's kind of interesting who Arkansas is going to go with at QB. I believe they're still going to stick with Taylon Green, even though Malachi Singleton in the garbage time, I guess you could say, against Ole Miss, played pretty well, you could say. He had, 200-something yards, and I think he had a couple scores in that game. Arkansas really needs their star running back in this. Jaquindon Jackson, I believe he's back. I really hope he's back because he's huge for the Razorbacks. But you kind of touched upon this with Texas's DBs, Texas. You could make a case Texas has the best defensive backcourt in the country, and it might. Honestly, they probably do. With Barron,
right now, yeah, Jahdae Barron
is
the highest rated cornerback in all the country right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's close.
No, it's not.
But with Arkansas, they have a very underrated wide receiving core. Andrew Armstrong, he should be drafted coming up this year. Even with Tesla, he's a pretty solid number 2 option on the opposite side. Satana, I never could say his name right, the slot wide receiver, and then obviously Luke Haas, the tight end there. So Arkansas, if they're going to have the offense, I think, to make this an interesting game, can their defense and front seven step it up, because it hasn't really been over the past few weeks, really 2 games that they've had, or 3 since they've played Tennessee. They played Tennessee really well defensively. Haven't really seen that since. I think Arkansas is going to cover, and I think they're going to make this an interesting game. Watch out for Arkansas in this game. They could seriously storm some noise like they did against Tennessee. They're going to have, like you said, Bobby Petrino. They had a week off, too. They just had a bye week, and, Texas just had a game. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, so I do expect Arkansas to come out and have a really strong showing against Texas. I like Sam Pittman. I know a lot of people, really Arkansas fans, kind of want him fired. This would definitely save his job. I thought the Tennessee game saved his job, but I guess not. But I like Texas to win in a close one, kind of like the Vanderbilt game, in which Texas really, they just don't have the run game to put Arkansas or put teams away like they should. That's kind of what I'm expecting here. I think Arkansas is going to limit the rush game, and maybe they're going to have to force some turnovers here. But I think Texas wins a 27-24 type game, just like the Vanderbilt game.
Yeah, so basically it's like a 10-point game, and then they go in late to score a touchdown.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I can
Texas,
see that.
I'm just worried about Texas's rush game.
No, I am too. That's my biggest concern the whole year, and I said that. I mean, the numbers prove that. I went through the last 10 national champions, looked at their best running back yards per carry, and then looked at their yards per carry as a whole. Texas as a team is off by like half a yard I think it was half a yard per carry as a team off of the average national championship team, and then they're off by like over a yard per carry based off the best running back there. They don't have the running game this year. They just don't. And that's a combination of Cedric Baxter getting hurt and then the offensive line not getting – they're kind of like LSU. They're pretty damn good in pass protection other than the Georgia game, but then they're god-awful at getting pushed in the run game. I don't know what the issue is there. But that is definitely the biggest issue. Quinn definitely is healthy now. I noticed that. In the Georgia game, I didn't know if that was the thing, but then watching him versus Vandy in Florida, I think that's pretty clear it was. Like, he's actually throwing the ball down the field now. He was not doing that at all in the Georgia game. And yeah, he didn't have time, but when he did have time, he still refused to do it. This game's going to be interesting because Arkansas is going to unload the clip. Like, everything they have will be thrown in this game. One, because it's their biggest rival. Texas is still their biggest rival. I don't care what anyone says. You ask the fans that are in their mid-40s. They absolutely despise Texas. Steve Sarkisian said it best at SEC Media today. They hate Texas more than they like themselves. And Sam Pittman was asked that, and he said, you know what? He's right. That's literally what he said. He's like, yeah, he's right. This is, you're right. If he wins this game, this saves his job probably not just for this year, but next year too. Like, if they go 5-7 or 6-6 next year, people are going to be like, you know what? But he beat Texas 2 years ago, because that's kind of what he rode on for a while in that 2021 season as well. So it is a scary game. I'm going to admit that. It's not the game I was expecting coming into the season. But it comes down to me for this. Who do I get at quarterback for Arkansas? Who am I getting? Is Taylor Green going to play well? I don't know, because guess what? There are games he plays, and I'm like, damn, this guy can be like a Heisman Trophy finalist. Then I watch him another week, and I'm like, this guy starts in the SEC. So, like, I don't know what I'm getting. And if you could give me his best performance here, I do think they could beat us, no doubt in my mind. But am I going to bet on that? No, I'm not betting on that. So I'm going to take Texas to cover barely. I predicted this before I knew the line. I predicted it yesterday. I didn't even look at the line. I said 34-20, and I kind of agree with you. It's going to be like a 27-20 game. We score a touchdown late, and it pushes over 34-20, and that's right on the number. I would not bet this. Like, if you're telling me I have to, I will take Texas, but I have not laid any of my own money on this game, and I'm not going to. I would take the under here as well. And also on the defensive side of the ball for Arkansas, it's pretty simple what you have to do to Quinn Ewers. If you get to him early, it rattles him throughout the rest of the game, even if the pocket is clean throughout the rest of the game. If you don't, you have no shot, because he's a rhythm quarterback, and once he's in rhythm, it's really hard to get him out of rhythm. So I think you'll know pretty early which way this game's going to go. I think it's going to be kind of like the Ole Miss game in a sense. If Texas can actually protect Quinn and allow him to hit down the field and that defense is swarming, you could get another Ole Miss versus Arkansas performance. If it's not, you could definitely see Tennessee versus Arkansas, but I'm going to take somewhere in the middle here, and I'm going to take Texas to cover by half a point.
Yeah, and this is actually the second most exciting game, I think, of the weekend. It might even for the SEC, it might be number one. They're if you look into the top five, obviously Tennessee, if they are number five, which again we're going to find out here soon. But Oregon has a relatively tough game on the road against Wisconsin. Obviously Texas here. This is a very important game, and this isn't just your run of the mill. Oh well. Texas is the number one team in the SEC, kind of what Georgia was last year. They went on the road. They were like, what was it, 20-10 at half, and then boom, cruise by. This is not your cruise by situation with the SEC this year. This is going to be a competitive game, I really do believe. I could see Arkansas pulling a shocking upset, kind of like what Georgia Tech did to Miami last week. And again, I would have loved this to be a night game if I'm an Arkansas fan, but nonetheless, you're gonna have to show out for this game, especially Sam Pittman. I agree, like you said, this is he's gonna show everything he has, kind of like he did against Texas A&M, in which he was faking punts, faking field goals, going for it on 4th and 3 at your own 40-yard line. This is this type of game in which forget all the analytics, forget all the they're going to go for it on 4th downs. They're going to fake punts. They're going to do dumb stuff like that. And hey, if you get one, it goes your way. Great. If you don't, you're going to look stupid. So, but this is that type of situation for Arkansas, all in. And for Sam Pittman, this is a must win.
Yeah, and Jaquinta Jackson's going to have something to prove if he's healthy and wants to play in this game as well, because, this is old team. I don't think he hates Texas because we didn't recruit him as a running back. We recruited him as a quarterback, and then he moved on to Utah as a quarterback and then switched to running back. Yep. But he still wants to play well versus his in-state team that he went to. So it's going to be very interesting, and he's really good. He's one of the, I think, 5 or 6 best running backs in the SEC when he's healthy. Tyler shaved the mustache.
Oh, Tony, you're wrong, man. You had your bet there, and you were so close. But hey, shout out to Tony for beating Clemson for me, for kind of silencing them, but kind of not. Clemson fans are still up my butt about my preseason pick for I had them losing. I had them going 10-2, losing to Georgia, losing to Virginia Tech. Okay, so I wasn't right on the game. But I was right that they would go 10-2. All the Clemson fans thought they were going 11-1, going to the Super Bowl, top 5 in the nation. They could beat Texas. They could beat Oregon. They could beat Georgia again. The Georgia game was a fluke. This is all dumb stuff I heard. So, but shout out to Tony. You did me a favor and went to Clemson's house and beat the soul out of them. So
I didn't have Clemson in the playoff either. I had Miami making it, but they lost in the ACC championship game. Now the winner, dead wrong on this. Is the most NC State. My God. Yeah. No, not going to happen.
Speaking of the ACC, though, I love my SMU pick. Oh, my goodness. How funny would this be? The team that paid their way to get into the ACC not only runs the gauntlet in which they played 3 straight ACC road games in a row. That has never happened before in ACC football's history, in which they had a team play 3 straight ACC road games in a row for, I think, 3 straight weeks. They won all 3 of those games, and then they're the number 1 seed right now. Boy, would it be incredibly funny if they won year 1.
Well, and also be crazy because if SMU won the ACC, Texas won the SEC, Oregon won the
Big Ten,
and then Colorado won the Big 12. Every newcomer would have won their.
That would be hilarious. That's what we need.
Yeah, it could happen, and I guess the Colorado you couldn't say because they have been in the Big 12 before, but I'd still consider it a newcomer. They haven't been there in over a decade. So let's jump to what's probably the best game of the weekend in college football. Tennessee's getting 10 points here going to Georgia. Everyone was kind of shocked by that line. I even saw Uncle Lou post out, take the points, because he's disgusted with his Bulldogs up to this point. But let's talk about Tennessee. 33.6 points per game, 23rd in the country. 5.9 yards per play, 41st in the country, 4.9 yards per rush, 35th in the country, 8.2 yards per pass, 22nd in the country, and a sack percentage given up of 7.08%, which is 92nd in the country. Now let's talk about that defense, which has the case as one of the best, if not the best in the country. 13.8 points per game, 5th in the country, 4.1 yards per play, 2nd in the country, 2.9 yards per rush, 5th in the country, 6 yards per pass, 18th in the country, and 8.30% sack percentage, 20th in the country. Now, Georgia on the other side, offensively, 28.4 points per game, 51st in the country, 5.8 yards per play, 50th in the country, 3.9 yards per rush, 85th in the country, 7.6 yards per pass, 43rd in the country, and a sack percentage given up of 4.52%, 38th in the country. Defensively, they allow 20.4 points per game, 19th in the country, 4.9 yards per play, 30th in the country, 3.4 yards per rush, 19th in the country, 6.7 yards per pass, 41st in the country, and 6.45% sack percentage, 54th in the country. Tyler, what do you have to say about your team in this game?
Oh, yeah. After the Ole Miss game, I was pretty upset. Now, once again, I actually had Ole Miss winning this game. I thought Ole Miss would beat us. This was a must-win situation for Lane Kiffin. This is also kind of a throw. Well, I wouldn't say a throwaway game for UGA. It was still a big game, but this game right here means much more, especially now that they lost. But I just didn't think Georgia would come out and do absolutely nothing offensively and just get blown out like they did against Ole Miss. I was very concerned about this game after the Ole Miss game. And then I watched Tennessee play Mississippi State. They had two big losses in this game. They did win this game, though. They won 33-14, whoopity-whoop against Mississippi State. But Nico went down. They bring in Gaston Moore, and he played terrible. He did not look good. They only let him throw the ball 8 times. And Tennessee's, to be honest with you, their rush offense, when he got in the game, it started to deplete as well. And then I think Dylan Sampson got banged up. I think that's actually a bigger loss considerably with what Nico has done this year. Now, he looked okay against Mississippi State, but now I think it's official that Nico is out for this game. So I'm going to roll with my dogs then for sure. I don't think Gaston Moore is good enough to win this game. And I know he's a fifth-year senior. I think he was a transfer from somewhere. But Tennessee's going to have to basically rely on a first-time starter going into Athens. Georgia hasn't played a home game in how many weeks now? It's just been ridiculous how many weeks Georgia has gone without playing home games. They've played more top 10 road games than they've played home games this year. Just disgusting. But nonetheless, I think Georgia's going to win this game. It's going to be like 1st to 17. I can't trust Carson Beck, though. Georgia's offense has just been terrible. Georgia leads the nation in drops. I think they have the 29 now. Carson Beck, I believe he leads the nation in interceptions now. He had 3 turnovers he had 2. We did recover one of those fumbles, I do believe, but he had 3 fumbles against Ole Miss. It was just terrible. I think Mike Bobo in Georgia finds enough offense to beat Tennessee that they can scrape by, move on to, our elementary school that we play. And then that Georgia Tech game's big now. That Georgia Tech game is much bigger than what people thought in the offseason. So watch out for Georgia Tech, but I think Georgia's going to win this game. And it's going to be with their defense. I think Georgia's going to win a 20-13 type game.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think it's going to be pretty low scoring. I also think both these teams kind of mirror each other because they both still have pretty good defense. Tennessee, I do think, has a little bit better of a defense. Yeah. And a little bit better of a running game. But quarterback-wise, like Carson Beck turns the ball over a lot. Nico doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but he really doesn't hit any plays down the field or inspire me much at the quarterback position. And if he's not playing, I know, like I said, he's not great, but he's better than a guy that's going to be making his first start on the road in Athens. Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia in this situation. If Nico was playing, I probably would take Tennessee. It'd be super close for me, though. I'm going to take Georgia to win this game 23-20. Maybe not. Maybe I'll go, I'll go 24-17. So I'm going to take the under, and I'm still going to take Tennessee plus 10. I don't love that. I'm going to be honest with you. I hate this line in general. I don't know if you force me, I'm gonna take Georgia, but I don't love it. I do think this is going to be a relatively close game, a relatively low scoring game. I don't love it. It's going to be very interesting, though. I think weather is going to be a factor as well. Like if it starts pouring like it did versus Ole Miss, I think that actually favors Tennessee in this game because they're going to want to run the football more, especially with Nico out.
Yeah, and Georgia's offensive line is going to have to play a lot better. Their offensive line played our offensive line played absolutely terrible against Ole Miss. I mean, there was no bright spot on the offensive line. On the offense, you could say, well, ETN, there's something going on with him. He's banged up. He's not healthy enough to get the ball 20 times. So we got to bring in, Cash Jones and Nate Frazier. Nate Frazier, on the other hand, he had a couple bad fumbles against Ole Miss, two really big ones that cost Georgia drives there. So he's going to have to play a lot better. But again, he's a true freshman, so I'll give him that. He gets a pass there. But Georgia did everything in their power last week to lose, just point blank and simple. The play calling wasn't good either. I've been protecting Mike Bobo all week. I get it. You got to look at the stats, though. Our wide receivers are just not good, and they're dropping a lot of passes. Arian Smith is a common one of those receivers that drops too many passes. I mean, I genuinely think he's dropped at least 6 touchdowns this season. I wish I was kidding. The Alabama game, he had like 3 or 4. The Mississippi State game, he had 1. Dylan Bell has dropped passes. So, I mean, everyone's dropped passes, so I can't really rag on one. But Georgia's going to have to play a clean game here. It's Georgia. Georgia has been turning the ball over like it's their job. It's like every week Georgia finds a way to turn the ball over 3 times. Now, they've won those games other than the Ole Miss game, and you could throw in the Bama game, but they've won some of these games in which they've turned the ball over a lot, and that's just simply because of their defense. But yeah, I do believe I do believe Nico's out, so that means Gaston Moore is going to be stepping in. I can't take Tennessee here. I could see Georgia blowing out Tennessee now, but I can't. You would have to basically trust Carson Beck. In the offense for Georgia to blow out Tennessee, and I just don't see that happening. I think it's going to be a close game. Lower scoring for sure. First 1-17. That's what I'm taking the Dogs. Dylan Sampson, if he's out, I think that's an even bigger loss because that's pretty much your entire offense now without Nico. And without him, it's going to be hard to see Tennessee score and win this one. So,
yeah, if he's out, then if Georgia loses that game,
that would listen. If Kirby loses this game, he's going to get a lot of heat. I know that for a fact. And last week's Georgia team looked like 2016 Georgia. So I hope that's not the case. And remember, the last time Georgia lost 2 games in a row, they lost at Ole Miss, and they got blown out by Ole Miss, mind you. And then they lost at home to Tennessee on a fluke miracle Hail Mary. And that was 2016. So I hope that's not the case. Trust me, I can't go down and lose to Tennessee on a Hail Mary again. That was just depleting and just demoralizing.
Yeah, they haven't played like they've only played one half of great offensive football the whole year. That was second half versus Alabama. They didn't play good at all in the Texas game. Yeah, they didn't play good at all in the Texas game. Like, the only reason they scored a lot of those points is because Texas was shitting down their leg the whole game, giving the ball at the 30, and then you could score from there. But, yeah, they have not played well. And their defense was really good in that game. And it's been good at certain points, but it hasn't been great either. So, again, like you and I have said, this is just a weird year in the SEC.
Yeah.
Tony said, Texas, man, you better beat Kentucky big or I'm holding you responsible. I mean, unless Brock Vandagriff has like the game of his life, I think we're going to beat Kentucky pretty similar to the way we beat Florida. Because, I mean, that I don't really see. Do I think Brock Vandagriff is better than Nathan Warner? Yes, but not by much. I really don't think he's that much better.
Yeah, and Kentucky fans pretty much are done with Mark Stoops. So, Stoops is a weird guy, man. He's done it before, in which he's won some weird, crazy games like he did against Ole Miss, but I really feel like that luck and fluke is gone. But
Yeah, and they don't really even like when I talked about Florida pre Texas, they have like 3 legitimately good running backs. I don't think Kentucky has I think those 3 running backs are better than anything Kentucky has. I also think their
Yeah.
wide receivers like Elijah Badger, and Chime. I'm terrible at this guy's name, but Chime Adike or whatever from
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
DK, yep.
Yeah, they're both. I mean, Barry and Brown's better than both of them, but after that, they were better than any of the wide receivers Kentucky has.
Yeah, I will I will give Kentucky credit though. They do have some good wide receivers. I kind of wanted Baron Brown to come to UGA, but he didn't end up going to the portal. But Keys is pretty solid. The rush game, it pretty much was. Didn't they get who they get? They got the guy from Ohio State. It's not Darius Hayden. It
Yeah,
was
it's I know you're talking about Chip Trainum.
yeah, train him. He got hurt. Yeah, he had the game-winning touchdown against Notre Dame last year, but he got hurt, and then it was who's going to step up. They got a lot of younger guys. That wasn't just going to work out. And then Kentucky's, their offense is a big issue. Their defense just isn't as good as what it had been.
No.
And listen, their defense isn't bad. It's actually above average. It's just not, that top 30 in which they've kind of been all year. So. Yeah. I feel bad for Kentucky fans because their schedule is hard. Their schedule was hard, so we can give them kind of a pass there. But they just found ways to lose to Vandy and got just destroyed by Florida. Those are 2 just season-ending losses right there.
Yeah,
42 plus. Whoa.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm thinking more of the lines of like 34-13, something like that. But
yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Again, guys, this has been the 8th edition of SEC Live. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out. Give us a follow on Twitter or X. That is mine. This is Tyler, so please do that. Also, guys, again, use that Amazon link in the description. Does not change the buying process whatsoever. Just put us a little bit of change in Mark Rogers' pocket. And if you'd rather listen than watch us, type in Voice of College Football, SEC. You can find it in the list. Instead of watching, saves your battery and also saves your eyes. I know you don't want to watch us, so listen to us instead. That is it for us. We will catch you guys next week at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, and from here on out, it will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to leave you a message from Mark Rogers TV at the end. Stick around, and that's going to be it, guys. Actually, we're not going to leave you that. I did not queue it up, so we'll not. But it's the Voice of College Football bets. So if you guys want to check that out as well, they have a bunch of opportunities there to make some money. I know like Steve Merrill is on there and he kills it. And then Mark has killed it like 70% the last couple of years of betting. So 60% of the last couple of years of betting, which is still really good. Like,
yeah, that's really good.
He says in the promo, if you bet $100 on every big game that he gives you, you'd be up $9,300 in the past year. So that's pretty good. So go and check that out if you can. Not Mark Rogers. Do you have some beef with Mark Rogers, Tony?
No, Tony is Mark Rogers' biggest fan, though. He loves Mark Rogers. I don't know why he's saying that. Come on, Tony.
Okay, well, Tony, again, we'll be back here Tuesday, but we appreciate you joining us. See you guys.
See ya.